Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be talking about the second half of Aquamoon, Rebel Moon. So Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, is a film directed by Zack Snyder, which initially was pitched to Lucasfilm some years ago as a Star Wars project. However, they rejected it, so Snyder spent a couple of years changing the story, making sure it wasn't connected to Star Wars in any way, and making it wholly his own thing. And as the title of the movie might suggest, this is part 1 of a 2-part series. The next movie, The Scargiver, comes out in April, and they're hoping to build an entire cinematic universe out of this IP. But enough of the background of this movie. What did I think about it? Well, it ain't good. Just to give you guys a little disclaimer, I am going to be getting into some spoilers. I'm not going to be doing a full breakdown, in-depth analysis of this movie, but I'm not going to hold back as far as what happens in the movie. So, you have been warned. So, this movie opens up on a shot of a space vagina. Yeah, I know, it's a portal. It's supposed to be this movie's version of faster than light travel, but come on. We all know what that looks like. And some people have claimed that this was intentional on Zack Snyder's part because the home world of the bad guys in this universe is called the Mother World, so that they were deliberately going for this provocative female imagery, but Zack himself debunked this, so yeah, this imagery was accidental and it got by so many people, and apparently nobody raised their hand and said, hey, that maybe we should change that. While that's going on, we get to hear some narration from Anthony Hopkins. Now, this is not a problem for me personally, because when you have a world like Rebel Moon, one that's a little bit more fantastical, sometimes narration can be very helpful, filling you in with, some of the lore and some of the history of this world so that you can understand it. The problem that I have with this scene, which is, admittedly, it's a small problem, it's a nitpick, but this narration is filling you in on some of the history of this world about, kings and plotting and death and war, and it is laid over some of the most flat, uninteresting imagery of a spaceship just casually floating through space while smaller ships break off of the main ship. Give us some more exciting footage, like lay it over footage of the events you're telling us, kind of like what Lord of the Rings did. I don't know, that just would have been much more interesting to me, but like I said, this is a nitpick. If this was the only problem the movie had, it really wouldn't be that bad. But that is not the only problem this movie has, not by a long shot. After that, the camera pans down, and now we are on the titular moon, where we get introduced to our main character, Korra, played by Sofia Boutella. I've seen a lot of divisive reactions to her as the character, her performance in this movie, and I gotta say, I'm putting myself in the she wasn't very good camp. Now, that's not meant to be a direct insult to Sofia Boutella. I'm sure she's a wonderful person in real life, but she has no screen presence, and she is a charisma vacuum.
Stop. I want to give you one chance to just turn and walk away.
Now, I want to be very clear here. When I say that she lacks a screen presence and that she doesn't have charisma, I do not mean that I think she should have been cracking jokes every 10 seconds. I don't think she should have been some quip master, kind of like Spider-Man or Nathan Drake or anything like that. You can be stoic and still have a presence. You can still be traumatized, but still charismatic. I mean, just take a look at someone like Kratos or Din Djarin from The Mandalorian. It is possible, and I just don't feel like Sofia had the chops to bring a character like that to life. But anyways, we get to see that she lives a really peaceful life that she quite enjoys in this little farming community. And I gotta say, one thing I really do like about this movie is the aesthetic. This village has a fantasy vibe, which I really dig. You know, the original Star Wars movie was a sci-fi, but on Tatooine, when we see Luke's life, it has more of a Western feel, more of a cowboy sort of aesthetic. So I appreciated the change up here. But this peaceful life of farming is about to be turned upside down because the bad guys, the Imperium, have now arrived on their doorstep. And what follows their arrival is what I could best describe as Diet Inglorious Bastards. You have an admiral who shows up and does his best to appear charismatic and friendly to throw the people off guard, much in the same way as Christoph Waltz's character did in the aforementioned Quentin Tarantino film. But Francis here just isn't Christoph Waltz. He's not nearly as charismatic, he's not nearly as intimidating, but he does a passable enough job here. But the bad guys are here, they're here to do bad guy things, so now we have a conflict. But Cora is doing her best to not be noticed by the soldiers, because as we learn later on, she used to be one of them until she deserted the Imperium and fled to this moon. She has no interest in this conflict, she wants to avoid it as much as possible. That is, until our first sexual assault scene. Yeah. I did say first. So the soldiers are trying to, let's just say, deflower this young girl, and this is when Cora decides to step in, and what follows has got to be one of the worst action scenes that has ever been directed by Zack Snyder. Is it the worst action scene ever put to film? No, it isn't. But Zack Snyder usually excels at this sort of thing. He's really good at framing a shot and giving us action scenes that just absolutely pack a punch. Moving right along, Cora decides that she needs to fight. The farmers agree. One of them embarks on a journey with her to recruit some warriors to defend their home. Hey, I remember that movie. Now, I know it sounds like I am being really harsh on this movie, but up until this point, I actually didn't think it was that bad. But from this point on, this movie completely derails itself. So the first stop on their journey is Discount Mos Eisley, where they meet Charlie Hunnam's character, who for some reason is Irish, but anyway. And this is when we come to our second sexual assault scene within 1 hour. Now, I'm not saying that you can't depict your villains in this way. I'm not saying you can't have them commit such heinous acts to set up how bad they are, and there's certainly nothing wrong with showing them getting their comeuppance. But when you do it twice in one movie that isn't about that subject, and when you take into consideration that Zack Snyder has done this multiple times in different movies like 300 and Watchmen, for example, it just feels kind of lazy and edgy for the sake of being edgy. Like, you can't figure out any other way to show this is a bad guy. But anyway, there's a big fight scene. They recruit Charlie Hunnam's character, and you start to see a pattern emerge. Our main characters will travel to a new planet. They will meet the character they are there to recruit, get either some exposition on who they are, or have a fight scene, or both, and then that person is now on the team, and then rinse and repeat. I'm not exaggerating when I say they do this 5 times in the movie, and it takes up a majority of the runtime. It's sort of a reverse of one of the big problems people had with the 2016 Suicide Squad movie, how they rushed through all these character introductions and didn't really give us enough time to get to know them. This time, it's like they spend too much time on character introductions, yet somehow I still don't know very much about these people, nor do I care. The last character we do this for is Darian Bloodaxe, who is played by Ray Fisher. Those who don't know, he played Cyborg in both versions of the Justice League movie. And, yeah, he's awful in this movie.
To stand against a dreadnought of the mother world.
Ooh boy, that is, That is certainly an attempt at acting. Don't worry, he gets killed off like 3 minutes after he's introduced, so... Anyways, Charlie Hunnam's character turns out to be a traitor. He betrays them to the Imperium. A fight scene breaks out, and the main bad guy is killed, quote-unquote, by Cora. Not really. He comes back later, like 3 minutes. And the movie ends. Why was this 2 parts? Don't get me wrong, I kind of figured this movie would end on a cliffhanger. You know, you don't call it part 1 for no reason. But this movie spent so much time meandering and spinning its wheels in the mud that it feels like this should have just been one movie. Now, before I go, I do want to just address one thing. There is going to be a director's cut. It's supposed to be longer. It's going to be R-rated. Why didn't they just release that from the jump? I understand that there might be some benefits to releasing a PG-13 version so you can get more numbers, more streaming views on that. But this isn't a theatrical release. You don't have to worry about run times and box office. Why not just release both cuts at the same time? And I have a theory as to why. I think they're trying to jump on the Snyder Cut bandwagon. They're trying to build anticipation by releasing an inferior cut of the movie, knowing that there will be a demand for an extended director's cut that's the quintessential version of the movie. And I gotta say, if that's the case, I am not a fan of that. I am not a fan of the way they are trying to milk the engagement out of this movie. It feels very weaselly to me. So, just to wrap this up, this movie was pretty disappointing. Yeah, I thought it was a mess, and I had hoped better. I had hoped it would be better. However, I think you have a decent enough foundation that a director's cut might actually give us a decent version of this movie. I'm not a fan of the way they're going about this director's cut, but I am intrigued to watch one. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. And, as always, take care.